There we go. A great man once said, fuck it, we'll do it live. And with that, let's do the intro. Well, it would help if I had the correct audio set up in advance, damn it. Let's see if it even picks up. No. Hold on. You can probably hear Hanky walking in the background. Ah, yes, here we go. December 21st, Infinite Novelty. Crafting up codes, defining my reality. Never gonna finish writing, that is how my novel be. Action, reaction, just a lot of causality. Infinite Novelty, December 21st. The start is the end, and the last is the first. You might catch me traveling through the past. It's a blast. I get nasty. Fuck you, I'm a gamma ray burst. Fuck you, I'm a gamma ray burst. Fuck you, I'm a gamma ray burst. I get nasty. I get nasty. I'm theoretical like tachyon particles. I hit you with diamonds and leave you in sparkles. I'm a demon, I cackles. I'm gonna leave you in shackles. You can't play with my Tetris, you got nothing to stack with. You ain't playing no games, you just high on cracked wits. I ain't got time for fly subs, set up traps. You call yourself a runner, but you ain't running. They say life is the lesson, so don't let make it a teacher. But there's no way I'm a student when I'm really a preacher. I'm boosting up my signal, so my sound will reach you. From the top of your attic to the ground beneath you. In life after death, there might be no conquest. The challenge is now. There's no avoiding this test. In life after death, there might be no conquest. The challenge is now. There's no avoiding this test. I need some more time to write the rest of the story. I'll spare you the details. The process is boring. If you can't code, your brain is going to explode, rot, corrode, erode, overload, like an electrode. Your whole mind explodes. That's been walking on how many years now on death row? All because you think it would be weird to command your console? So post mortem, your family, I will console. Shortly before I devour they soul, men they brains and bodies I now's control, because everyone's got that missing hole.
Kill, power, kill, love.
Greetings, everybody. It's Dark Mage. Someone gave me a good idea. They said, instead of writing your game in Python like a jackass, why not go back to writing it in C? And I'm like, oh my god, I would be so less bored. Python's great because a lot of things are already solved for you. But there is something fun about reinventing the wheel. You know what I mean? Like, if you were to ask a bunch of kids today, like, what you're going to make a game in, almost none of them are going to say C, right? Most of these kids are going to be like Unity or Unreal Engine. If you want to get real down and dirty, like, I should really look at Unreal Engine, because this whole discussion's about C. And if we want to get C++ involved in the conversation, one thing I appreciate about Unreal Engine is that the core language of the system is C++ based. Now, why would this matter versus C#? Well, C# is a bastardization of Java on a lot of different levels. We all knew this in high school when it first came out in 2004, around 2003, 2004. It was probably like, that's like when I first heard about C#, but I was already kind of like balls deep into Java, right? And Java itself presented like no challenge, you know, because it's got this core library built in. And really, honestly, once you learn a language well enough to pick up core libraries, like, you don't really have to rewrite old data structures. That's something that they make us do in computer science school from the ground up, because it's kind of central to understanding the things that you're using before you use them in order to understand them truly well. It might take longer to get started, but I think the payoff might be better this way than certain other ways of learning how to do things. However, that said, growing up, I always felt that doing things myself would be far superior and faster than doing it some other way, right? I'm going to turn off screen share for a moment so I can pull up chat. I just need to rant and ramble a little bit, get back into the mode of thinking required to do this kind of thing. Greetings to the one viewer, it looks like. Let's see. So, I should probably let people know that we're live. I was about to reply to Nassim Nicholas Taleb, but it honestly doesn't matter what I was going to say. Sometimes a lot of the shit on Twitter really doesn't fucking matter. But as a vehicle to putting myself out there, and it's interesting because even though I've changed the topic, right, of this particular stream, for some reason, the meta, or like the open graph map shit, whatever the fuck that, you know, Twitter and all these other fucking websites do, has cached the previous one. So when it posts, it's going to post like as if the current stream is about Sheeran, when in fact this particular stream is about game dev and C. So there you go. Everything's fucking broken. So this gets back to the point of like, what's wrong with kids today and modern computer science ways of thinking across languages, right? Like, and I say kids, but I mean anybody really. Like, it's age independent. Like, you know, especially with like watching forums and comment threads on languages like Go and Rust, and the disgusting eternal language wars that I've witnessed. Not just language wars, but tool wars. I like C too. That's why we're going back to C. It's just like C gives us more control than other things, right? So when I ran /game just now, this is actually a old build. This is from October 3rd of last year, 2 years ago. Like, I haven't built the game in that long. So it just runs on Linux fine. The build system at the moment, I fear, is busted, and I have to fix it. So it's important that we hold on to this one good build of the game. So let's copy it. Game.backup. Okay. So now we have game.backup, so I don't have to worry about what happens to this at the moment. So why is the build system broken? It says nothing done for all. Make clean. Okay. Okay, actually it might not be broken. I might have misspoke. When I was running things earlier, it wasn't doing what I expected. So, okay, that makes sense. I remember these. So, a couple years ago, I was challenged to make a game that was supposed to be a replication of a game called Tempest. Instead of re-implementing that, I ended up kind of like giving my own spin on it, and instead of it being like a tubular interface, I had like a skull going around a circle using polar coordinates, and it was kind of fun to build that. And in the process of building that, I was like, what does he fire besides lasers? Oh, I know, he'll fire knives. And eventually, in the process, I had this genius idea that the skull could catch the knives by going to the bottom of the circle and be able to count the number of times you've caught the knife. And so where does that go? It's like, well, every time you catch the knife, maybe the velocity of the knife doubles or goes up by a point or something like that. So there's an incentive to actually catching the knives, right? And I realized, well, shit, this would be a really good mechanic if it were like a 2D shooter, like a shoot 'em up. So I threw away the original engine, which was a terrible idea. I should go back to it, and decided to rewrite it as a side-scrolling shoot 'em up. A friend of mine actually contributed assets and has learned a lot about spriting along the way. Myself and him both included. So this was actually kind of a two-man effort. So it actually built just now. So let's go ahead and run it. This is the fresh build that we just made just now. It's pretty good. So we had multiple enemies, right? And I had this idea to have like patterns of enemy spawning where, like, for instance, that skull dude, that eyeball dude is like surrounded by shields. The white eyeballs were the initial enemy to start with. And figuring out the bullet patterns was a lot of fun too. I figured the natural way to add new enemies, if I'm not able to think of any new enemies, is to take the current ones and just create like new levels of them, right? Which is really common pattern of game development in like other games. Like, as an example, Sheeran does this all the time, where they do color swaps on a particular sprite in order to get a new one. I'm actually doing this by actually creating new sprites, but if I were a little bit more educated in the spriting department and working with libSDL, I would be using like a color overlay of sorts to there's like a more technical term for what I'm talking about, but it's like a thing you can throw on top of the sprite in order to like change the color of all the pixels.
Kill.
For those of you who are familiar with the web show Load Radio Hour, that's actually where this contest this game originated. Was from a challenge that someone put. Every layer like actually all of the graphics except for the eyeball are done by my friend. But the placement of everything, the programmatic effort, the system of movement for everything, from the individual changing speeds of all the clouds to the moon, to the background where the gravestones are, to the candles up front, to the way that the bullets fire at you by tracking your movement on the screen, to the way that I'm moving with the skull right itself. Plus, every time you fire, there are sound effects.
Catch.
I actually made that sound effect by clinking two knives together in my kitchen and recording them on a very shitty mic. A lot of the sound effects are my own voice. There you go. Also, if you hit I forgot about this, you actually get a debug panel that updates like every second. We're currently running at 60 frames per second. My CPU's not really being very loud right now, so I think this is actually performing way better than Pygame. 60 frames per second should be the default, right? Like, so why are we looking at this? What was the point of me bringing this up today? Why are we going into the past?
You're good. Kill. Love. Money.
At some point, I kind of want to... Oh, why did we pause? Oh, that's right. The moon got to the far left, so I remember having a thing in here where, I had a pause screen. Oh yeah. So when the moon gets to the far end, it pauses the game, and then when you unpause, we go to game over. Let's see what happens if you actually die. So, like, to die, let's just run into a dude.
Ouch.
There we go. So it takes us back to the beginning. So, essentially, we have the full game loop, right? And I'm sure that if, there's probably bugs that I haven't discovered in this. Build $4.99. So I think I'm actually tracking the number of times that I build. So unless it's actually in the make file, in which case I think it may have been a wrapper. I'm trying to do intelligent things like track how many times I build. So a friend of mine challenged me to continue working on the game and see, kind of as respect for one of our favorite programmers, Terry Davis, big advocate of the C language. Most of what I know about programming came from my time learning and working with C. And its variants as well. C++, Objective-C. So, let's say this is a good idea. I said build $4.99. It's still $4.99. So the build clean run. What parameter? Oh. Well, this is back when I was using fucking MS Build. So that build tracking system was really specific for Windows. So this is super ancient, right? Like, I was working on this game back when I was on Windows 10 on this laptop still, and I had not fully migrated back to Linux. I was working with the Windows subsystem for Linux 2. There was a bunch of hacks and bullshit that I had to do in order to get things working at least kind of okay. Whereas now with, so long as I'm using like Debian or Ubuntu or some variant, all I have to really do for most situations is copy over my config files and reinstall whatever it is that I was using, and that's actually pretty easy. There was a bunch of bullshit that I had to deal with on fucking Windows. Especially with the embarrassment of come contest day to submit my binary to load something that he could actually play, even though I had working code. Was too dumb to remember or even think about a debug build option that was enabled by default in Visual Studio. As a result, when I gave the binary to load, he was lacking in some DLLs that would have otherwise allowed him to run the game. And it was far too much effort to try to rush job, get him that shit last minute. It would have been easier for me to have realized to turn off the debug flag if I had even known about it, but prior to really messing around with that stuff, I honestly, besides Xcode, I don't have that much IDE experience. In most cases, nor do I want it, and kind of make a game to avoid it if possible. I say if possible because there are situations where it's unavoidable. But if you can avoid it, it's kind of a refreshing angle to approach programming from a minimalistic perspective, right? Like, this is one reason Unity kind of turns me off, and doing this in C turns me on. So, having more control over the code that we write and what we actually give, because in the end, I had this game building on Mac, Linux, and Windows. All three major computer distributions. So, assuming that I built something that actually people wanted to play, wouldn't be that far of a stretch to get it onto a phone or web platform at that point. Provided that the code base was good enough that it would be easy to kind of transform things from one environment to another. libstdl can do a lot. Just saying. Okay, so we're not tracking build numbers at the moment, but one reason we're going back to this in the first place, let me just check the time. One reason we're going back to this in the first place is I really want to get a game out there. I don't think I'm going to do that in Python necessarily. Python has good hopes in the future as being a language for game development, but I think might have to go back to the old ways for right now. But going back to, specifically the code for Skull, of all things. Why Skull? Well, we're not going to necessarily be working on Skull. Excuse me. C86 at 44. And copy everything from that folder to this folder. Excuse me. let's keep things. Let's see. I'm going to move the DLL folders into the temp folder temporarily. I'm going to do the same thing for the .lib files as an effort to kind of clean up. Wait. Okay, everything still builds, and the folder's a lot cleaner. Just curious what ends up being yielded.
Cat.
Okay, so it's still good there. We've got approximately 30 minutes left to work before I have to go. I'm going to do 25 to give myself some breathing room. Let's see. Oh, and this is actually C++, not C. But close enough, right? Oh, there's some real dumb shit in here, I'm sure. So where's our int main? Posture. Let's see. See how the main loop has a very tight base, right? Like, so the whole game world is centered off of game state. of stuff here is really hackish and very specific to Skull in general. Render frame. I'm imagining is in yep, it's in render. So here's the drawing code for that game that we were just looking at. This is gonna be some ugly ass code. It's not that bad though. It's from lines 484 to 398 to 484. So about 100, almost 100 lines, right? So everything that gets drawn is dependent upon what the current scene is. The scene is a variable that I describe in GameState.h. For each one of these scenes, it's part of an enum. An enum is like a way to have a systematic, like number after number, way to index some sort of category, so that you can very easily reference it in your code. In older C, this is just like a syntactical convenience. In more modern languages and current implementations of C++, it can be referenced as a class. That's how they do it in Python. So when you start off with like game state non equals 0, it's kind of implied that like the next one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So each one of these is kind of like an integer. So because I can refer to it this way, I don't have to like remember the number of what scene is what. That would be stupid. But doing it this way is pretty smart. But as it turns out, as I was like working it out, and like I haven't touched shit since fucking 2021. We're coming up on 2 years now. I've been depressed as hell. So it's time to get cracking. But like I said, a lot of this code is really dependent on like the Skull game in specific, and I feel like if I were to really start working on the game that I want to work on, not Skull, even though Skull can become a thing and should in the future, I don't have the instinct for what to build or what to sprite. And at a certain point, it starts to feel like drudgery, and that's not what I'm about. You say, but Mike, you want to build all these dumbass dungeon items and shit. You want to build all these monsters and tiles, and you really want to do all that? I'm like, yeah, why not? It seems intuitive, just like the logical thing to do. So to continue explaining how the scene code, because what you saw when I ran the game, this is the title scene. This is title to main transition. This is main. Let's go and get killed.
Ouch. 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 Ouch.
That's another transition. That's a transition. This is game over. This is game over to title transition. And we're back to title. So as you can see, there's like a large number of transitions that we have to make. And each one of these render frame handles each drawing. It's a very large case statement. That's what that is. I could have done it as if statements. I ended up breaking up into a mixture. Other languages like Python don't have switch for some reason. So at the end of all scene drawings, we have some unique code that gets ran. We reset the renderer target, and then we draw the target texture, and then we render the debug panel if we need to, and then we present the renderer. So renderer is a reference to the game state's renderer. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Sometimes something pushes on my back and I develop a coughing fit. Had to set it up so I'm sitting Indian style. Help keep my arms straight. Crack my toes. Sorry for these sounds. Ooh. Let's see what's up. So the game state is an object that we describe here. It's a class. It has its own methods. I could have probably been a lot less dumb about a lot of this, but and certain things I ended up writing inside of the class definition as opposed to putting in the .cpp file, and I'm not sure why. And it's highly inconsistent, and there's a lot to be desired with this code base. So I feel like if I started from scratch in C++, I can get things far enough along where I'm not like hating the process of adding new things, because I'll be able to work on things in a very specific individual fashion. Lots of see, I don't know why I have the methods up top and the variables at the bottom. It's weird. So if we're to like systematically destroy this code, does this loop still make sense for any game that we might make? I think it does. So we actually want to tweak render frame. Clear screen, and then we would have to comment out most of that. Making that simple change should be sufficient to have a seg fault. Oh, this current scene. Yeah. Excuse me. Why would that cause it to there we go. Okay. The debug window still yields. That's good. It actually keeps track of like the current scene in the bottom right. A lot of the stuff in the debug panel is no longer needed. But we do keep track of like whether or not you're pushing a button. I think the debug panel should probably be updated or refreshed more frequently than this to be more accurate. Well, I think a lot of me trying to save the frame draws or like just save having to like refresh all that shit may not necessarily be the best. Might like that real-time feedback. So render debug panel. Get debug panel text is from the game state. Okay. Set debug panel text. Okay. So we're going to cut down some of this. Remember, we're in the process of stripping down some C++ code to make it more suitable to get started working on a dungeon crawler. We're using Skull as the code base to perform this transformation. buttons, enemy count. We no longer need buttons. Maybe we need those. Enemy count. Bullet count. No. Enemies killed. Game overs. Bullets fired. Max bullets fired. Max bullets on screen. Wave. Power up count. Bullet timer. Player. Scene. No width. No height. Frame. FPS, scale, cam X, cam Y, move mode, buttons, I kind of want this to be all on the same line because honestly, when the text renders it is, so why not have the expression all on one line? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And we no longer need this. I think this is right. I'm gonna have to go in a few minutes anyway. But this might be a good pattern of behavior for actually getting some stuff done. Is just chill out, just write some C++, work with old code. There we go. Let's change the rate of drawing. Oops. Every 60 seconds we were calling, or every 60th frame we were calling set debug panel text. Now we'll just do it every frame. Very high speed feedback. You see how fast that looks now? So like as soon as I press a button too, it's actually rendering. So like to show you what I'm talking about, let's upgrade the font for the debug panel. You can do 32 here. Uh-oh. There we go. So I gotta work on the window size, but as you can see, it's looking, you know, it's slowly coming together. I've got all the graphics still for the old game in Python. Getting a tile on screen, moving around is not going to be hard. Doing a grid's not going to be hard. Doing the zoom system's not going to be hard. I forgot how to do the scaling. I'll have to see if I have code existing for that already. Looking good, looking good. Okay, so we've got 10 minutes until I have to meet with my student. So I think it's time for me to bounce. However, there is no Git repository for this. We are currently in C/game. So we're going to call this one just game until it's fully cleaned up. Because eventually we're going to come back and hack in a bunch of stuff. This would be good content for you guys. Just whittling away at a game in raw code. We'll do plenty more of this later. So I hope everyone has a great day, and that you too start working on your dreams, because we only have really right now to do anything. So let's get her done. For those who were not aware of how to get a hold of me, you can check me out here, and here. I'm currently broadcasting on both Twitch and YouTube. I've got a unique @ symbol on YouTube now, so you can hit me up at youtube.com/@evildojo666. It's been a pleasure, everyone. Evil Dojo with the sick flow, Dark Mage 666 out. Until next time.